Welcome to Simplified UPSC by PPP, where we listen, learn, and grow together. Detailed lecture notes in English and Hindi, plus practice questions for prelims and mains, only on our Telegram channel. Link in description. Like and subscribe for more.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take these massive, complex research stacks and, well, distill them into the high-yield knowledge you really need.
And today, we're zoning in on a big one. Section 2.3 from the Simplified UPSC syllabus, Cyclones.
Exactly. Our mission today is, surgical precision. We're not just scratching the surface.
No, we're extracting every single key metric, every physical process, and all those essential mitigation strategies that you have to have command of for the examinations.
This stuff demands technical accuracy and really detailed recall.
Right.
We're really aiming this at the person who needs to know the why behind the numbers.
Right.
Why 26 degrees Celsius? Why does the warmth have to go down 60 meters?
Why can't they form on the equator? All of that. We've synthesized material from disaster management, geography, preliminary exam sources. We're giving you the full picture.
And before we plunge into the eye of the storm, so to speak, a quick but really sincere note. The only reason we can maintain this level of depth is because of our community.
It really is. So if you find this kind of detail valuable for your preparation, please do consider becoming a YouTube member.
Your support lets us put in the time to build these resources, to be your thought partner through this. So a huge thank you to all of our existing members. You're the foundation for all this.
A deep and sincere thank you.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack this swirling, low-pressure system that dominates our tropical oceans. Let's start with the absolute basic definition of a cyclone.
Okay, so at its very heart, a cyclone is a region of low atmospheric pressure.
Low pressure. That's the core.
That's the absolute core. And critically, this low pressure zone is surrounded by areas of high atmospheric pressure.
Which creates a massive imbalance.
A massive imbalance. The atmosphere is always trying to equalize that gradient, and that struggle is what generates this immense swirling disturbance.
And that disturbance brings with it three hallmarks of destruction.
Right, precisely. Three major characteristics. First, the obvious one, strong winds. These are what cause the immediate catastrophic physical damage to buildings, to infrastructure.
Ripping things apart.
Exactly. Second, you have exceptional rain, a massive downpour that leads to just devastating flooding, often far, far inland.
And the third one, which is maybe the most terrifying and unique to coastal areas.
That would be the storm surge. This is a truly dangerous, abnormal rise in the sea level as the storm makes landfall.
So it's not a tsunami, it's different.
Completely different. It's caused by a combination of two things. The storm's incredibly low pressure literally pulls the surface of the sea upwards, and then the sheer force of the wind pushes that mound of water toward the shore.
A wall of water.
A wall of water. It causes this rapid, overwhelming inundation that accounts for a huge percentage of fatalities in any cyclone event.
That makes sense. Okay, now let's talk about the spin. The rotation. It's not random, is it? It's governed by a fundamental force.
Not at all. It's all about the Coriolis effect. It's the apparent force caused by the Earth's rotation that deflects moving objects.
Like the air in a storm.
Exactly. It dictates which way the winds will blow around that low-pressure center.
Okay, so let's nail this down. North of the equator.
In the northern hemisphere, the Coriolis force deflects the winds to the right. So they blow in an anti-clockwise direction around the low.
Anti-clockwise in the north. And I'm guessing it's the opposite in the south.
The moment you cross the equator, it flips. In the southern hemisphere, the deflection's to the left, so the winds blow in a clockwise direction. It's a direct consequence of the planet's spin.
This is one of those facts you just have to memorize cold. Okay, now for the names. This is pure UPSC recall territory. Same storm, but different names depending on where you are in the world.
Right, let's be systematic. We'll start in the western Pacific, so west of the dateline. There, they're known as typhoons.
Typhoons, a very active area for them too.
Extremely. Then if you move east, across the dateline, into the Atlantic, the Caribbean, or the Northeast Pacific.
Then you get hurricanes.
Then they're called hurricanes. Fundamentally, they are the exact same meteorological beast, just a different name for a different basin.
Got it. And there are a few other more localized names we need to know.
There are. For instance, around Australia, they're called Willy Willy.
Willy Willy. That's a memorable one.
It is. Now, the source material also lists tornado for South America. And we need to be careful here.
Ah, that's a different kind of storm, isn't it?
A very different kind. A tornado is much smaller, often more violent, but it's a localized thing that forms over land from thunderstorms. We include it because it's in the nomenclature lists, but our main focus here is on the big, ocean-borne tropical systems.
Good distinction. And finally, let's bring it home. The North Indian Ocean. What's the official term used by the agencies here?
For our region, the official term used by the IMD for a storm of a certain strength is severe cyclonic storm. That's the terminology you'll see in all the official warnings and reports.
Severe cyclonic storm. Got it.
Now we get into the really good stuff, the physics of how these things are born.
Stage 1, the recipe for a cyclone. For anyone studying, this is all about remembering the precise numbers.
Absolutely. This is the initial development. There are 4 non-negotiable technical parameters that all have to be met at the same time.
Let's start with the fuel source. The ocean. What are the exact conditions?
Okay, condition 1, warm sea temperature. The engine runs on warm, moist air, so the sea surface temperature has to be in excess of 26 degrees C.
But it's not just the surface, is it?
No, and this is a critical detail. That warmth must extend down to a depth of at least 60 meters.
50 meters. Why so specific? Why does the depth matter so much?
Because it's about the stability of the fuel supply. If the warm water is just a shallow layer on top, the storm's own winds would churn it up, mixing it with the cold water from below.
And it would kill its own engine.
Instantly, it would cut off the fuel. Having that warmth down to 60 meters ensures a deep, stable reservoir of energy. It's a deep thermal battery that can't be easily drained, providing that abundant supply of water vapor for days on end.
Deep thermal battery. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the fuel from the water. What about the atmosphere above it, condition 2?
Condition 2 is all about humidity and condensation. It's not enough for the air at the surface to be moist. You need high relative humidity extending way up into the atmosphere,
How high?
up to a height of about 7,000 meters.
7 kilometers. Wow. So why is that necessary? What's happening up there?
That's where the engine really ignites. As all that water vapor rises, it cools and condenses into cloud droplets. This process releases a massive amount of latent heat.
Latent heat, the energy stored in the water vapor.
Precisely. And that released heat warms the air column, making it lighter. Lighter air means the pressure at the surface drops.
And that lower pressure sucks in more moist air from the surface, which rises, condenses, releases more heat.
You've got it. It's a powerful positive feedback loop. Without that high humidity up to 7,000 meters, you can't build the giant thundercloud towers that are the backbone of the storm.
Okay, so we have warm water and moist air. Condition 3 deals with the stability of the atmosphere itself, or rather the lack of it.
Yes, condition 3, atmospheric instability. We need the atmosphere to be unstable. Scientifically, that means we need an above-average decrease of temperature with altitude. The temperature needs to drop quickly as you go up.
So if a parcel of warm, moist air starts rising from the ocean,
It stays warmer and more buoyant than the surrounding air for a long, long time. It just keeps accelerating upwards.
like a hot air balloon that won't stop.
Perfect analogy. This steep temperature gradient encourages that considerable vertical cumulus cloud convection, the violent towering clouds. If the atmosphere were stable, the rising air would just cool, become heavy, and flatten out. No storm.
Fascinating. And finally, the last piece of the puzzle, it involves the planet's rotation. We know they don't form right on the equator. Why not?
That is condition 4, the Coriolis force requirement. The rule is the storm must form at least 4 or 5 latitude degrees away from the equator.
So what's so magical about 4 or 5 degrees?
Well, the Coriolis force is 0 at the equator. It's at its maximum at the poles. If you have no Coriolis force, you have no deflecting force.
Nothing to start the spin.
Nothing. Air would just rush directly into the low pressure zone, fill it up, and the disturbance would be gone. By moving just those few degrees away, the Coriolis force becomes just strong enough to start nudging the inflowing air into a spiral. It allows the system to organize and spin up rather than just collapsing.
So it's a perfect storm of conditions. Deep hot water, a massive column of humidity, an unstable atmosphere, and just enough spin from the Earth.
Get all 4 and you have the genesis of a cyclone.
Okay, once that recipe is met, the system grows into stage 2, the fully matured cyclone. It has a very distinct anatomy. What are we looking at from a satellite?
A highly organized structure. The main feature is that classic spiral pattern. It's made up of these huge, turbulent cumulus thundercloud bands, all spiraling inwards toward the center.
And in the middle of all that chaos, you find the most famous and strangest part of the storm.
You do. Right at the center is a zone that is bizarrely calm. Low winds, often clear skies. That's the Eyewall of the cyclone. The source material notes it looks like a black hole or a dot from space.
So if the eye is calm, Where's the most violent, dangerous part of the storm?
That would be the eyewall. It's the dense, thick ring of clouds immediately surrounding the eye. This is where you find the strongest pressure gradient, the fastest winds, and the heaviest rain. It is, without question, the most destructive part of the storm when it makes landfall.
So you get this brief, eerie calm in the eye, and then the other side of the eye wall hits you.
Exactly. It's a deceptive calm.
So after stage 2, it eventually has to die out. Stage 3, weakening or decay. How does this massive energy machine finally run out of steam?
It all comes down to cutting off the fuel. The cyclone weakens the moment its source of warm, moist air is abruptly cut off. The latent heat engine just sputters and dies.
And what causes that to happen? What are the scenarios?
Oh, there are 3 main ones. The most common is that the cyclone hits the land. Land provides friction, which slows the winds, and more importantly, it cuts off the supply of moisture from the ocean.
The fuel line is severed.
Exactly. Or it can move to a higher altitude or latitude over cooler ocean water. Below that 26-degree threshold, the engine can't sustain itself.
And the third way.
Sometimes it can be disrupted by another weather system, another low-pressure system that interferes with its structure and inflow.
Okay, so how long do these things typically last?
The average life cycle of a cyclone, from birth to death, is about 6 days.
6 days. But I remember hearing about storms that last much, much longer.
Oh, yes. The record holder is an astonishing case. Typhoon John. It lasted for 31 days back in 1994.
31 days. How is that even possible?
It had an incredible track. It just kept meandering across the Pacific, crossing from the northeast to the northwest basin, and it just kept finding these patches of warm water to refuel itself. An absolute marathon of a storm.
Incredible. Okay, let's pivot to the Indian context, which is obviously critical for our listeners. India's geography makes it uniquely vulnerable. Can you quantify that risk for us?
I can. India has a very long coastline, 700 and 516.6 kilometers. And because of that, about 8% of the country's total land area is considered prone to cyclones.
8% is a huge area. And the risk isn't evenly distributed, is it? There's a definite hotspot.
A major hotspot. The Bay of Bengal accounts for about 2/3. That's 2 out of every 3 cyclones that strike the Indian coastline.
2/3. Why is the Bay of Bengal so much more active than the Arabian Sea?
A few reasons. The sea surface temperatures are generally warmer for longer periods. You also have a huge influx of fresh water from the Ganga and Brahmaputra, which creates a stable, warm layer on top that doesn't mix easily. And, the very shape of the bay acts like a funnel.
It channels the storms right into the coast.
It does. So the vulnerable states on that east coast are West Bengal, Orissa and Odisha, of course, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu.
And the West Coast isn't totally immune, right?
Not at all. The risk is lower, and the storms are often less intense, but Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala are all on the list of vulnerable states.
Now, to really understand what this means, we have to look at the benchmark event, the 1999 Orissa supercyclone.
Yes, this case study is absolutely essential. It struck on October 29th and 30th, 1999, hitting a 140-kilometer stretch of the Orissa coast.
What were the numbers on that storm, the intensity?
The numbers are staggering. Reported wind speed was between 260 and 300 kilometers. I mean, that's enough to tear apart almost any structure not made of reinforced concrete.
Unimaginable. But the wind wasn't even the biggest killer, was it?
No. The factor that caused the immense loss of life was the storm surge.
How high was it?
The surge created a water level 9 meters higher than normal.
9 meters. That's a 3-story building. A wall of water the height of a 3-story building.
Exactly. Pushed inland by 300-kilometer winds, it just annihilated everything in its path.
And how far inland did the destruction go?
The storm traveled more than 250 kilometers inland. It ravaged over 200 lakh hectares of land. The human cost was horrific. Approximately 10,000 lives were lost. Millions more were devastated.
And the economic impact, I imagine it was crippling.
The source material is very clear on this. It says the cyclone literally broke the backbone of Orissa's economy. It didn't just cause damage, it wiped out entire sectors like fisheries and farming, setting development back by decades. It's a stark reminder that these are profound economic events, not just weather.
Absolutely. Okay, so given that immense threat, detection and warning systems are, well, they're everything. Who's the lead agency in India for this?
The nodal agency is the India Meteorological Department, the IMD. They're responsible for everything from weather reports to tracking and issuing these severe weather warnings.
And what's the primary technology they use to see these storms forming out over the ocean?
They rely heavily on our satellite network, specifically the INSAT satellite system. It provides continuous imagery, allowing them to track the cyclone's movement, its intensification, and try to predict its landfall.
The prediction part must be incredibly difficult.
It's the hardest part. Tracking where it is now is one thing. Predicting its exact path and intensity 24 hours from now with all the variables involved is a huge challenge.
So once the IMD has a forecast, how do they get that warning out, especially to the most vulnerable people, like fishing communities already at sea?
They use a multi-layered approach. There's a dedicated satellite system called the Cyclone Warning Dissemination System for direct communication to coastal areas, which can bypass damaged ground networks.
That's clever.
It is, and that's backed up by more traditional methods. Widespread use of radio, public announcements, sirens, and, very importantly, specific bulletins tailored just for the fishing community, warning them not to go out or to return to shore.
Getting the message out is key. Now let's talk about the impacts that linger long after the storm passes, the adverse effects, beyond the obvious destruction.
Right. The immediate one is, of course, physical damage. Fragile buildings, roads, bridges, power lines, all destroyed.
But the water brings its own set of long-term problems, particularly for public health.
A huge problem. Widespread flooding leads to the contamination of drinking water sources. Wells, reservoirs, everything gets mixed with sewage and debris. This creates a breeding ground for disease. You see outbreaks of viral illnesses, malaria, cholera.
Secondary disaster.
Exactly. A health crisis that follows the storm. And then there's the impact on the land itself.
You're talking about the salt.
Yes. The inundation by seawater leaves behind a layer of salinity in the agricultural soil. This salt can render farmland fertile for years, destroying livelihoods long after the floodwaters have receded.
It's just one devastating blow after another.
It really is.
Which brings us to mitigation. If we can't stop them, we have to prepare for them. Let's run through the key strategies. What's number one?
Mitigation strategy 1 is coastal greenbelts. This is about using nature to defend against nature, specifically coastal belt plantation.
So, planting trees. How much can a line of trees like mangroves really do against a 9-meter storm surge?
A surprising amount. First, they act as windbreaks or shelter belts, slowing down those destructive winds. But their real magic is underwater. The dense, tangled root systems of mangroves create immense friction. They absorb the energy of the incoming surge, slowing it down and reducing its height.
So they act like a natural break on the water.
A very effective one. And they also stabilize the coastline, preventing soil erosion. The Odisha disaster really hammered home how vital these natural buffers are. Areas with healthy mangroves fared much better.
Okay, that's the natural defense. What's strategy number 2?
Strategy 2 is about planning, hazard mapping. This involves using historical dated climatological records, past wind speeds, storm tracks, to map out which specific areas are most vulnerable.
So you look at where storms have hit before to predict where they'll cause the most damage in the future.
Precisely. It allows authorities to create detailed maps showing zones of high risk for wind, for surge, for flooding. It means you can make informed decisions about where to build shelters, where to plan evacuation routes, and what building codes to enforce. It makes your response proactive, not reactive.
Which leads directly to strategy 3, engineered structures, building smarter.
Exactly. You have to promote construction that can withstand these forces. A key part of that is elevation. Building homes on stilts or on top of artificially raised earth mounds.
To get them above the water level?
To get them above that typical surge height. Another huge thing is roof design. You have to avoid large overhangs on roofs.
Why is that?
Because a big overhang acts like an airplane wing. The high-speed wind gets underneath it and creates lift, and it can just peel the entire roof off the house. So you either avoid them or use strong ties to anchor the roof down. And of course, use water and corrosion-resistant materials.
Makes sense. And finally, the last resort when a storm is coming, community preparedness.
This is all about having a safe place to go. It means constructing strong community shelters. These are reinforced concrete halls built in vulnerable areas but on higher ground, designed for mass evacuation.
So everyone in the village knows when the siren goes off, that is the place you run to.
That's the place.
Yeah.
They often double as schools or community centers in normal times, but their primary purpose is to save lives during a disaster. And that goes along with community drills, education, making sure everyone knows the plan.
It's a holistic approach. Natural defenses, smart planning, strong buildings, and a safe place to shelter.
That's the only way to reduce the risk.
Okay, that was a huge amount of detail. Let's do a quick review to lock in the most critical facts for recall.
Good idea. Let's start with question 1, formation conditions, the 4 key numbers.
Okay, I've got this. First, the ocean has to be a deep thermal battery. A 26 degrees sea water temperature down to a 60-meter depth.
Good. Second.
The atmosphere needs to be saturated. High relative humidity, all the way up to 7,000 meters.
Perfect. And the last one, involving the planet itself.
You need the spin. The location has to be at least 4 to 5 latitude degrees away from the equator for the Coriolis effect to kick in.
Excellent. Master those 4 and you've mastered stage 1. Now, question 2, risk reduction measures. Give me the 2 primary strategies, one natural and one man-made.
The natural one is the shelter belts, the coastal belt plantations like mangroves, to act as a buffer.
And the man-made one for saving lives.
That's the structural refuge, building strong community shelters in vulnerable locations for evacuation.
Exactly. The biological shield and the concrete shield. Finally, question 3, global context. The names.
Right. Typhoons in the Northwest Pacific.
Correct.
Hurricanes in the North Atlantic and Northeast Pacific.
Yes.
And for us in the North Indian Ocean, it's officially a severe cyclonic storm.
Perfect. Location dictates the name.
We have covered so much ground today. The incredible physics of these storms, the 300-kilometer-hour winds, the 9-meter surges. It's just mind-boggling energy.
It's a terrifying amount of power, and we track it with incredible precision, with INSAT and the IMD's warning systems. But as the 1999 Odisha supercyclone showed us, our ability to predict doesn't eliminate the capacity for destruction.
And as we close out, I want to leave you with a final thought, one that connects this physics to policy. Think about the dual challenge that India faces. On one hand, you have to manage the intense physical hazard, the raw power of the supercyclone itself.
But at the same time, and perhaps this is the greater challenge, you have to address the endemic social vulnerability. Why did 10,000 people die in Odisha? It wasn't just because of the storm. It was because the coastal populations were impoverished. They lived in fragile homes they couldn't afford to reinforce.
They couldn't build on stilts. Their livelihoods were tied directly to the land and sea that were about to be destroyed.
Exactly. So the ultimate long-term mitigation challenge isn't just about building better storm prediction models. It's about tackling the poverty that prevents millions of people from having the basic resilience to survive what the atmosphere throws at them.
That intersection of hazard and vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's the core of disaster management.
It truly is. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into cyclones. We hope we've given you the technical details and the context you need.
And if you found this level of focused analysis valuable, please consider joining our community as a member. Your support is what makes this all possible. We'll be back soon with another vital topic. Until then, keep learning.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Telegram and Instagram. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.